So, next coming up, Barbara.
Hi there, Alicia.
Hey.
Thank you for letting me be a part of her many voices. For everyone here, Alicia and I have worked on the Coalition Against Global Genocide. And my work started with children with special needs as an educator and then a university professor in that area. But then I branched out into basic parenting long before I had my own
Mm,
children.
mm,
And from parenting, my goal in education and parenting was to raise responsible, resourceful, resilient, compassionate human beings who knew how to think, not just what to think, who
mhm,
were willing to stand up for values and against injustices, who weren't easily led and didn't do to please, who had
mm,
what Carl Sagan said, and it seems like everybody here has had today, is the gift of skepticism and wonder, the
mm.
wow and the why. Little 3-year-olds, wow, look at the rain. Wow, look at the mud puddle. Wow, look at the snow. And why? Well, I want our teenagers and then us as adults to have that same wow. Wow. Look at the earth. Look at the plant growing. Look at our connection to one another and why. When their friends say, let's go vandalize that building, I want your kids saying, why on
Mm,
earth would I do that?
mm,
And so that wow and why is so important. But from there, I have a dear friend, Stephen Lewis, who was the ambassador from Canada to the UN and then became the UN ambassador for AIDS in Africa and started a foundation called the Stephen Lewis Foundation. And he and his daughter, who is a civil rights lawyer with the UN, created campaigns to work with women in Africa whose families have been impacted through AIDS and helping the grandmother campaign go. And I said to him one day, what can I do for you? And I ended up in Rwanda working with orphans from the 1994 genocide.
mhm.
And what an eye opener. I brought my son there as well. He went to work there as an artist and ended up in the medical clinic because he was an EMT. And he had been having some pity parties for himself because of a motorcycle accident. Hasn't had one since. Just being connected with other human beings who've been through
Right,
horror. Um,
right.
and so I've written books. My first one was Kids Are Worth It, and I have to thank Oprah. Uh, I was a replacement on her show. And after being on her show, my book, Kids Are Worth It, was in 26 languages, which
Mm,
enabled me to go throughout the world and work on the basic issues of parenting, which is a universal issue all over the world, different cultures and the like. But it also introduced me very forcefully to indigenous communities throughout the world. I had already worked with the Navajo and the Hopi, but I had the wonderful opportunity of training with the Maori in New Zealand on their whole process of not reconciliatory justice, but restorative justice and
mhm,
transformative justice.
mhm.
Um, and so when I wrote my next book on bullying, um, and then the book on genocide, I had reporters say to me, I thought you worked in parenting and education and you're writing on genocide. I said, where do you think it starts?
Exactly.
It starts
With
in the home, the
yeah.
schools, our communities. And I love your quote, whatever I do for another, I
Mhm,
do for myself. Because what I wrote about in my ethics book was about Martin Buber. I am I and you are thou.
mm,
I'm unique and you're unique.
mhm,
And our common humanity is linked to how we relate to one another. Working in genocide, the premise of that work is that it's a short walk from hateful rhetoric
exactly.
to hate crimes to crimes against humanity, which we are witnessing today in our world, in our own
Yes.
communities. The dehumanization of another human being begins with the words that we use.
Mhm,
When somebody is no longer a thou, but becomes an it.
mhm,
Tutsis were cockroaches, Armenians were dogs, Jews were vermin and bacteria eating at the fabric of our society.
mhm.
Rohingya are considered fleas. Once we dehumanize somebody, we can do anything to them and not feel shame or compassion.
Yes.
So the goal in my life is to make sure we greet one another as a thou. I have a
Mm.
very interesting um, Zoom coming up where I'm working with a woman from Montreal with parent educators from Ukraine and parent educators from Russia,
Mm.
all who oppose the invasion. It is not a war, it is not a conflict, it is an assault. It's like bullying is to
Yes.
conflict, like genocide is to a war. Conflict should resolve, bullying you must stop.
I thought of you just this morning.
Yeah,
I saw a meme this morning of a soldier, a Russian soldier, who, surrounded by Ukrainians, said, I'm not fighting this war. I can't do this to my siblings.
we're
And
connected.
one of the Ukrainian women gave him her cell phone. He called his mother and said, Mom, I'm okay. And here's what I'm doing as a Russian soldier.
Yeah. Yes, we need to not be, in my bully book, The Bully, the Not So Innocent Bystander. William
Mhm.
Burroughs said so beautifully, there are no innocent bystanders. What were you doing there in the first place?
Right.
And what are we doing? We
Mhm.
cannot just stand by. We cannot be henchmen, active supporters, passive supporters, or the deadliest lot, disengaged onlookers who turn a blind eye and say, it's not my territory, it's not my
Right.
foundation. And what is alarming to me, having worked in Rwanda and South Africa and Swaziland, which is no longer Swaziland, but and work in India and work on reservations, is how quickly we are to embrace those who look like us and to
Mhm.
make into its those who look different than us,
Mhm.
and how much we have to get back to the thou, that I am unique and you are unique. We got to honor that uniqueness. But with that uniqueness comes the we, our
Mhm.
common humanity. And so that is my life's goal. It mostly comes through working with school districts and parenting groups, the medical community, and the like. But I've also worked very much in the juvenile justice. I hesitate to call it that. The juvenile criminal system, we are trying to make into the juvenile transformative justice system,
Mhm.
where these young people then have done something horrible can find their way back and be embraced in community again, because we cannot ever turn anyone into an it.
Yes.
And this is where working with Ukrainians and Russian people who are of like mind today, knowing that we all have to stand up, speak out, step in. We
Mhm.
cannot just say, "Isn't this awful?" Or, "Oh my goodness, look what's happening to little kids who are wearing masks or not wearing masks," and the like, and say, "What happened to our common humanity?" The Ubuntu that Archbishop Desmond Tutu spoke about, that we are interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent. And where does it start? Our homes and our schools and our communities. And when we do that, we find ourselves connected to the earth. We have to find ourselves connected to the earth,
Mhm.
the ground we stand on, to go barefoot, which I often do, um, is to be connected to the earth. And a bit of history here. I'm a former nun, Franciscan nun, obviously former with a husband and three kids and three grandkids. And I must add, no, I didn't marry a priest. And yes, I met him after I left the convent, for you Catholics out there. Um, but my grandson, one of my grandchildren, is doing a project on interesting people. And he picked me and he said to me, Grandma, talk to me about your convent experience. And I said, glad I went, glad I left. Uh,
Mm.
and in between the glad I went, glad I left, I had a year of silence and a year of action in the civil rights movement, which I would have never had I not had both of those. And then I met my husband as a Cesar Chavez um, protest march for the migrant workers.
Mm.
Um, and so we have that kind of connection with others. I grew up in a very small town across the railroad tracks, second and only to the Spanish colony, and we were called white trash. So I could
Mhm.
relate. to people being put outside somebody's circle of caring. Because once you're outside that circle, those inside can do anything to you and not feel any shame or compassion.
Mhm.
And in the convent, we had huge farms and huge gardens where anyone could come and eat and come
Mm.
and pick the food, and come and dig in the soil, which gives us life to just be able to feel the soil. So that has been my history, having also worked in the beet fields myself as a young adolescent trying to get some money, working alongside people who were just like me, skin color different, just like me. And I think what we have to recognize, and her many voices does it so beautifully, is connect us all. Whatever I do for another, I do do for myself. And as you said so beautifully, whatever I do to them
Mhm.
is doing to me. We are interconnected. We can't block ourselves off. We can't gate those communities and say, oh, I'm safe. Because as your last speaker was talking about, the air we breathe is breathed by all of us. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're getting a note right now. It says, Barbara, you are a great example. Thank you for your ongoing efforts.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
Um,
you can go to my website, kidsareworthit, .com, and download all the handouts on parenting. They're free. All the handouts on genocide and bullying. But I also have right in the very top corner where you can download. I did this during the pandemic when so many parents were being teachers to their kids and realized this is not easy,
mhm.
and teachers who were dealing with young people bullying one another even online during lessons. And so I took my bully not so innocent bystander and condensed it into a 68-page electronic version that you can download and share with people that you care about. And the more we learn about bullying, the more we are going to see. I did catch a bit of grief when I compared bullying to genocide. I didn't say they were the same. I said it was a short walk. And
Exactly.
and I felt the people that said, "Then you don't understand genocide." They didn't understand the mean and cruel of bullying.
Mhm.
Because even in Rwanda, um, there were still young people saying that they were going to put the machete necklace on a Tutsi girl, after the genocide.
Mm.
Um, and that's in the schoolyard.
Mhm.
So once you dehumanize another human being, you can do anything to them and not feel normal shame or compassion. And that has got to stop. And it stops in our homes, our schools, and our communities.
Yeah, I'm reminded, what is it? Pratt said, kill the Indian, save the man, I believe was the quote. Oftentimes we feel like we have to destroy the core of who someone is. And
Mm,
bullying is right there.
yeah.
And it truly is that fine little line to go from bullying on the playground to you're encouraged to do that. You're empowered by it. You feel the control of it and becoming the genocidaire,
Yes.
right?
And we see this in Native communities, both in the United States and Canada.
Mhm.
Indigenous people not allowed to speak their language. We're now
Right.
finding grave sites, and it's a crime. It's a crime against all of us because we are connected. Every one of those little children, um, were our children,
Yeah.
and we have to realize that. We can't separate that at all.
Not at all. I know many people, when I first started the organization, people are like, why are you working over there? Why can't you work in your own backyard? Maybe my backyard is bigger than yours.
Yeah.
To me, there is no distinction to my children, your children. I don't care where on the other side of the pond you are.
Yes, and it does not matter.
It's
James
irrelevant.
Natchway, the phenomenal war photographer, said it so beautifully. He said, "Do good because good is good to do.
Mm,
Swearing threats of hell, brides of heaven. You do it because it's the right thing to do." And
mhm,
he traveled the world, photographing children in war and the
mm,
horrors of it in hopes that it would strike at all of our hearts and recognize that we don't do this for gain. We do this because of the children.
mhm.
And Raffi, the wonderful singer, Beluga the whale, that so many people do, has the honoring children. And he himself is second generation of survivors from the genocide of the Armenians.
Mhm.
And so he has been very forceful in advocating for the children in Ukraine and for the children in Palestine, for the children in Rwanda.
Mhm.
These children are our future, and we have to believe in them. But first, we have to clean up our acts. And that's why I'm so pleased to be a part of her many voices, Alicia.
Thank you, Barbara. And I'm going to remind everybody the to be called her many voices. The her makes reference to Mother Earth, the many voices, all of her children, whether it's, human form, the fish, birds, it's irrelevant. All of her children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you,
That
Alicia.
makes us all siblings. We got to take
Yeah,
care of each other. Barbara, thank you so much for joining us today. And
it's been a
I'm looking
pleasure.
forward to having you back for Earth Day as well.
Thank you.
All
It'll be
right.
an honor.
All right. Lots of blessings.
You too, Alicia,
Okay.
and more energy for more work. We all
Thank you.
need it.
Thank you. Yes, we need it. Thank you. All right. Have a